Hello and welcome to episode 1225 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Monday, October 23rd. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, it's been a little while. How you doing this morning?
I am back. I survived Disney.
How was the
Um,
vacation?
it was really, really nice. It was a lot of walking, which was difficult. When you're carrying around a 5-year-old for a large portion of that.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot of fun, man. Like just
Good.
seeing Disneyland at Halloween was kind of a new experience. I've been to Disneyland a bunch in my life, but haven't been at that time of year, and so getting to see the whole Haunted Mansion ride is completely different. The Tower of Terror ride is completely different. So getting to do some of those rides that they've completely changed for Halloween time, it was pretty cool.
That's pretty neat. It's well-deserved vacation. Hope you and the fam had a good time. As you know, we've talked about multiple times. October is kind of our decompression month. So pods have been sporadic. I didn't even do one last week. I just figured, you know what, I'm gonna take the week off myself. Had a week off with the pod. Once November turns, so we're talking like a week, it's back on the grind. I know drafts are going on, people are studying. We're not here to fall behind. So we enjoy our little playoff decompression month, and then we kick it right back into high gear with more consistent pods. And obviously that sort of deep dive into the season that was as we look forward. And we're going to continue to do that, looking back to look forward. And today we're going to identify a bunch of second half stud hitters and kind of see where we're at on them. Now, this is a mixed group of guys that didn't do anything in the first half. So they were second half studs in that was their only opportunity in the majors this year. And then there were traditional guys who struggled in the first half, might have been getting cut in some leagues, just ignored, and then pow, things take off in the second half. And then, of course, you have your injury guys. That always plays a role in this, too. So we're going to get into, I think, 13 different guys, a nice little group of catchers, too. I found an intriguing group of backstops that might have caught some interest from you, Justin. But let's just dive in with the number one guy that we have talked about at different periods this year, but I don't think we've done a full debrief here in our off-season episodes. Royce Lewis of the Minnesota Twins is definitely one of the hot flavors of the month going right now in early drafts, because he's also coming off a pretty strong playoff. They didn't last forever, but they did win a playoff series, and Royce Lewis was an instrumental part of that. I believe he ripped 2 homers in the very first playoff game that he played. And so, yeah, I don't think we've talked about him since in-season fab stuff with Royce Lewis. But the bottom line was, when he was on the field, he was great. Does this remind you of any other Minnesota Twin out there? I mean, it is, you can almost say infield Buxton, except that Lewis also plays the outfield, but it is that exact kind of vibe of when this guy's healthy, watch out. 11 homers, 5 steals, 295 average, 992 OPS in the second half. But it comes down to that health, because it was still only 32 games for Royce Lewis. He got hurt within this run. Where do you come out on the young stud? Is he just an infield or a utility Buxton, if you want to call it that way, to acknowledge his outfield? How do you feel about Royce Lewis right now after the big second half?
I mean, you got to feel pretty good, except for the price is going to be outrageous. The price is already outrageous. Current ADP, yes, we already have an ADP from 3 drafts, is 28.
Paying it.
Like,
I mean,
that is unreal. I think he will be a guy that probably continues to ride. He's got power, he's got speed. I think it's a decent enough hit tool that he could hit for a 260-ish kind of batting average, but it's all about health. I mean, like you mentioned, this guy has just not been able to stay on the field. And as much as I love Royce Lewis from a straight talent perspective, like, I can't pull the trigger on a guy that high that has missed the amount of time that he has missed, even at a great position at third base.
Third and short for Lewis.
I don't think he'll be short.
They're showing short on the ADP on NFBC's website.
I think that is not.
You're right.
That is last year's.
That's last year's eligibility.
So
it is straight up third base for Lewis, which is fine.
Yeah.
If I had to pick one or the other, I'm picking 3B
Yeah.
for sure. Look, you know, I've been there with Buxton, but obviously they're not related just because they're on the same team. So I'm not going to let the shortcomings of Buxton and the fact that he never really stayed healthy totally drive me away here from Lewis. It is a premium, to be sure. And I'm not necessarily buying him in every draft. You know, I instantly said that I would pay it when you pointed out Royce Lewis is 28 ADP, but I'm not against it. I'm really, really not. Like, it is a situation where over the course of my fall and winter drafts, I do a handful of them. You get 1 or 2 shares. You don't overload on a guy like this because he can tank all the teams.
Yeah.
Or at least hurt them, right? Like one guy being lost, even your second round pick, should not tank your teams if you drafted good teams. But yeah, you got to still be careful here with Lewis. It is a full price situation. Do you think the price comes down? Is this still some second half playoff heat driving Lewis, and then when everyone kind of deep dives and we really get some data, he comes back to earth? Or does he live here? Because in these 3 drafts, Lewis's range is 26 to 31. It's tight. So where do you think this goes? Does it trickle down, go up, stay around here?
I think it's going to probably stay around here. Because I think pitchers are going to rise, right? And so pitchers will jump him, but then hype will rise for him.
Especially if he has a big spring.
Yeah. People are going to look at the numbers he put up in 239 plate appearances, and that's 15 home runs and 6 stolen bases for Royce Lewis.
Yep.
And they're going to extrapolate that to 600 plate appearances. And they're going to go, hey, this is a potential, 40-15 guy or a 40-20 guy.
And he had 4 playoff bombs too, right? Like he just threw in extra greatness of like, no, I am him. I am the dude.
Mm-hmm.
You need me on your team, Royce Lewis. Don't forget, former 1-1, right? We're not talking about some Johnny come lately. Buxton was a 1.2. These are top of the scale type guys here. It really just comes down to health. And I know there might be some of like, I don't want to repeat the same mistakes with Buxton, but I guess I'm ready to, because the talent is just sky high, and I will have some Royce Lewis. So you're not paying it at all, or you're tentative?
I don't know how I can rationalize it personally. I mean, we're talking about him going virtually in the same spot as Gunnar Henderson and Rafael Devers, who I just feel like are safer bets. And
what makes Gunnar safer? Just that he hasn't been hurt?
The health, yeah. I mean,
yeah.
Like, we're not talking about a guy who's been banged up a little bit, right? Like, we're talking about a guy who's had a ton of minor injuries and a ton of major injuries.
Multiple major injuries, double ACLs, right? Not the same one. It was each one, right?
Yeah, I think it was.
I want to say when he ripped the other one, Royce Lewis, it was the one that wasn't healed. It was the other one. So that's crazy.
And so I don't know how you project him for 500 plate appearances. And that becomes a really difficult proposition when you can't project a player for 500 plate appearances. I don't know how you take him in the second round of a draft. Like that just becomes too risky for me. I think it's the Mike Trout argument, right? Like, would you be willing to take Mike? We know Mike Trout is great on a per plate appearance basis, but if you can't project him for 500 plate appearances, how can you draft him where he ends up going?
Depends on league. Depends on league size. I'm taking Lewis in a 10 and 12 all day still.
Yeah.
Even at that high end.
I think in a 10-team league, especially with a bunch of IL spots, like, place I will take a gamble on a guy like Royce Lewis is like this Tout Wars, right? Tout Wars, it's a 15-team league, but it's got unlimited IL spots, right? If you have a lot of IL spots in your league, then Royce Lewis makes a lot of sense. But if you only have 1 or 2, like, that becomes really difficult, because if he misses 4 weeks, are you going to be able to hold on?
I mean, you
should be churning those roster spots.
Yeah, but even if you only have 1 IL, like Lewis is that kind of guy that if you're committing to drafting him, he's got to be that guy that holds that spot unless your number 1 pick goes on. If you only have 1 IL spot type of
This
deal.
comes down to a lot to do with roster construction, right? If you take Royce Lewis, you cannot take another Royce Lewis-esque player, right? You have to be very careful about the pitchers you draft. You have to be very careful about the remaining hitters you draft, because guys are going to get hurt regardless. You can't invite any more injury risk onto your team by taking a Buxton, by taking, guys that, are coming into the
I'm not sure
year
you could
with.
take Glass now
No,
or,
yeah.
going on the pitching side version of it, like that sort of player. I see what you're saying. And you were about to say guys coming in with a pre-existing injury. Like,
Yep.
you do have to alleviate, especially with as high as you're taking Lewis. And you can't perfectly plan for no injuries. Like you said, other guys will get
Absolutely.
injured. But we know the guys with the heightened risk, if you start stacking guys with Lewis, like Glass now and Buxton, and even O'Neal Cruz coming off the big injury. And I
Yep.
know he'll be cheaper, but like that's another guy. If you start stacking a bunch of guys like that, yeah, there's a needle that you can thread and you win your league by 20 points, but that's the 1% outcome.
Yeah.
So you might want to take more of like, I don't know, your Logan Webbs, your I was gonna say Semien, but Semien goes around Lewis, right? So you can't even stabilize your team with 700 plate appearances of Semien and then get Lewis. I guess it depends if you were picking on the wheel right there and you wanted to go bing bang. But I get the risks. I do. I'm not forcefully pushing back on you for being tentative on Lewis. Love the player. We're going to Arizona Fall League soon. That's where I kind of had my awakening on him. Again, he's a 1-1. I didn't discover him or anything like that. I'm just saying I got to see him up close and personal. That was coming off one of the injuries. He looked amazing. I'm like, I'm in.
And
on
then
this
he got
guy.
injured in Arizona Fall League.
Correct.
Yeah, like I mean,
Correct.
so like, it's not for me. And I know that I still have the moniker of the injury prone lover.
This is all. It is all so funny in the backdrop of that. Like whenever you now are so fearful of any injured guy with that backdrop, it's excellent.
I'd rather take the L because he stayed healthy, because I'll be happy for him. Like I've got him in dynasty leagues, right?
Yep.
Where I've held on or bought low.
Sorry.
But I'm not gonna on my redraft leagues. I can't accept that risk. I get it. If he was going in 5th round, I'd be all over it.
Yeah, the market is saying it's full freight on Lewis, and I get that, but I also understand the tentativeness with it. And I've been in on this player type before, and it doesn't always go well. So
he'll be one of those guys though in like your Yahoo leagues where he probably will not be going this high. Like, and you probably should be in your Yahoo leagues or ESPN leagues. I'll be interested to see where his ADP goes, but my bet is he is not a top 30 player in ADP on Yahoo, on ESPN when those open, and he's much more in the 5th, 6th round of those 12-team leagues. And in those times, like, yeah, I'll take that gamble there.
Absolutely, because it's also a shallower format. And it will be more built off of previous season, because that's just the way those systems work at ESPN and Yahoo. They're so built off of last year with their default rankings that people just tend to gravitate toward that way. And that's the interesting thing about the NFBC is that obviously, there's nothing to go off of when you're drafting in October. People are setting crazy min picks on guys. This next guy, as we move on from Royce Lewis, might have a crazy min pick. He's actually got a very wide split right now here. He has an ADP of 97 in these 3 drafts that we're looking at, with a 48 to 137 range for first baseman Triston Casas from Boston. Interesting season for him. This was a guy I had in the main. And in a 15-team league, I don't think you really ever consider drafting him, especially because maybe you cut him in April if you were really impatient, because he had a 152 BABIP that really sank his numbers. But then he stair-stepped his way up the rest. May was 200 points better of OPS, and then June was almost 100 points better than that. So once you got through April, Casas was better, but the composite numbers still looked bad. So he was getting cut in shallower leagues for sure, even though all the power indicators were there that, hey, there's more to this. In fact, I just wrote up his Baseball HQ box and labeled him as that classic. The core skills are telling you do not get off Triston Casas. Big things are coming, and big things came with a 1034 OPS, 15 homers and 38 ribbies in the second half, with a 317 average for Casas. And I want to underscore that. I don't think that's a full fluke. I think Casas can be one of these premier power hitters who also brings batting average when he's keyed in, and can be maybe more of a 260, 270 guy consistently, as opposed to that sort of 240 all or nothing type power guy. He was amazing. He looked great. They fully committed to him. He was getting run against lefties. He still only hit 215 against lefties for the year, but did have an 817 OPS because the power was still there. Triston Casas cooking. now has a top 100 ADP. Is that somebody that you're willing to buy in on after his breakout second half?
This is one of the weirdest profiles I think that we're going to talk about today. Because if you go back to one of the last times we talked about him, kind of, I think it was right around the All-Star break, and we were talking about like, hey, is Triston Casas a good buy low? And I was all over him, right? Like I was saying, like, I really love the underlying skills growth. He's making better zone contact. He's not sacrificing power to do that. And he's striking out less, and he's just getting unlucky.
Mm-hmm.
So what does he do in the second half? He explodes, right? He has this huge breakout. The skills are atrocious underneath the hood, though. The second half skills are like, it makes no sense. He should have had these numbers in the first half.
And then the second half should have been the
really
struggle.
Had bad numbers. And so I don't know what to make of Triston Casas at all. At all. I mean, we're talking about a guy in the second half that had like a 76% 78% zone contact in the second half. That is bad. League average around 85%, right? 78% is like, it's not quite Joey Gallowian.
Gallowian?
Yeah, Gallowian sounds right. It's
Gallowian,
not Gallowian, like, but it's bad. And I'll bring up kind of the league.
With Casas's limited contact, as you're bringing that up, he was just doing major damage on it then, right? Because I know the bag
when he did make contact, he made a really good hard contact, and I think that's what we expected from him. But if there are people thinking like the batting average is a skills growth, it is not. It is absolutely not. That is going to crater if he continues with these.
I would be careful on that.
Okay.
I understand the contact profile you're talking about, but if he remedies that, the strikeout rate came down, the walk rate stayed at 14%. That's still a strong foundation. If you're giving me 24-14 on the strikeout and walk rate of somebody, and what I need from them is the contact profile to improve, that's a gamble I'm willing to take. I still think he can. I think Casas can be more of a 260s type guy. Not the 317 he hit in the second half for a full year, especially like you're saying, he did it. He got kind of lucky to do it because the BABIP soared to 365. But when you beat the piss out of the ball like that, that also gives you some wiggle room on your contact rate. Now, I'm not saying that he can have Gallo-esque rates and continue to hit 315, but I don't think he's necessarily going to crater if we get a little improvement in the contact rate, because the core skills of the walks and strikeouts are pretty good for a premier power hitter.
I've got the comp for you.
Yes.
You ready?
Yes.
Left-handed Matt Chapman. That's who.
I don't hate that, but obviously that breeds volatility.
Yeah,
we've seen Chapman's volatility.
And why does Chapman continue to play in spite of offensive struggles?
Brilliant defense.
He's a brilliant defender at the hot corner. I think that there are going to be really big ups and really big downs with Casas. A top 100 price, I don't think is right, though. I think that is too high of a price for a guy like Casas, especially with volatility. Could he make more growth, right? He showed growth in the first half and then showed regression in the second half. He's still really young. We say it all the time, prospect growth, not linear. Casas could turn out to be a guy that, hey, if he can make even league average contact, I don't need him to be a stud. I need him with his power level. If he made league average contact in the zone, he would be a 40+ home run hitter with like a 280 average. I'll take that all day. Isn't that Matt Olson, right? I don't think he's there yet. And I think that if we're paying a top 100 price, I have to have some belief that is in a real opportunity in the range of outcomes. I'm not there yet. So he's probably not going to end up on a lot of my teams unless he starts dropping in drafts at some point.
It's unfortunate that Kristen Encarnacion Strand is the next first baseman off the board at pick 110. So much for me stealing him. That is not a steal of a price.
No,
that is
you're not
expensive. And I didn't think I was going to be getting him at like 250 here. Let me be clear that I didn't think that CES wasn't on anyone's board. I didn't think 110 already, though. Damn. Yeah. So Casas and CES, kind of the two young,
well, and
huge
and
first baseman
going right before them.
Torque right there, yeah.
Yeah,
the three breakout, premier prospect type guys, especially Casas and Torque. CES was a prospect, but he wasn't on their level. But now going to Cincinnati kind of brings him up to their level, at least in terms of expectations. And then Steers one level ahead of them as like, okay, I did it all year. You guys did it for a half. Let's all kind of change the face of first base here. Now, you look at some of these guys that go after them, like, okay, you're saying, I'm not going to take Casas. I'm not going to take Torque, CES at those premium prices. Who do you like in that next group? Arise is a totally different thing, so let's throw him off to the side. I want to focus on power guys. I don't know if Santander, does he have first base? Because, again, I'm going off of, they listed
I believe
last
he does,
year's.
but I will
Okay.
double check real quick.
Okay, so then you got Santander, Naylor, Yandy, Bohm. Those are the next four. And they range from 133 to 166. Do you like anyone in that quartet more than our trio of pricey breakouts? Torque, Casas, and CES?
Santander will not have first
Okay,
base
so
eligibility.
throw him
in
out.
Yahoo, he will. In regular leagues, he will not.
Throw him out because, again, ADP or the position eligibility is last year's for NFBC, and bring in Vinny P, who's going at 180.
Yeah, I think that's
What about the buyback on Vinny P?
His price will go up once
For
he
sure.
shows health.
But what about now?
but-
Like you and I do drafts now. Like we're psychotic. We're gonna fire one up in November, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So are you going
I-
for Vinny P instead of the group?
I absolutely would. Yeah.
Okay.
I think I would. I think I would also Naylor. I think I'm Naylor over all of those guys. Maybe I have not done my projections on first yet. So
I love
think-
Josh Naylor. Is the discount enough? Because he's another guy who's got IL stints every year.
yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, the guys that I really like in this first base group are going pretty late. So
They're even deeper.
give me Nathaniel Lowe. At
I knew.
192.
I wish I could have bet every nickel I had that that's
Yeah.
who you're going to go to, because that's one of our guys that we both like.
Yeah.
And now he fell off the face of the map here. He's down at $1.93.
Yeah. Give me Andrew Vaughn at 214. Like, Andrew Vaughn's got a really great skill set if he's healthy. Isaac Paredes, like multiple position eligibility. Like, we're going to talk about Mountcastle at
We'll get to him shortly.
241. Like,
What's Hoskins' outlook? What's his scoop?
I think there was reports he could even be ready for the World Series.
For the World Series, yeah.
Like, he's going to be. He's a free agent though, so it's going to be a matter of like,
so we need to know where he goes.
where does he go? Is he like, as much as we think of Hoskins as like, hey, he's a legit power hitter, middle lineup type of guy, there are going to be teams that look at him like CJ Cron. And I mean, how difficult was it for CJ Cron to like find a job? At times, getting non-tendered, right? And
that's a good comparison, I think, especially coming off the injury.
Yeah, we really need to see where he's going to end up. Justin Turner, though, just
Energizer Bunny, dude. I know that's a dated as fuck reference, but the dude just keeps going, man. I think I made the exact same comp last time we talked about him because I was so impressed by Justin Turner's season. Hats off to him, man. He just keeps cooking. He's at pick 222.
Jose Abreu. I mean, I know Jose Abreu's price is going to go up after these playoffs.
Not that much.
Sure.
Not that much.
But he's at pick 300 right now. Even at pick 200, Jose
Exactly.
Abreu feels like
raise it 100.
Yeah.
And I can still get there. Here's the thing. I think you're right, man. I love Torque, Casas, and CES. But these might be traps, man. The community is paying full freight for them. And I love all three of these guys. I see value in all three of them. I would put more than one on a team, to go first corner, or CES might even have a third. So you can put him at third and one of the other guys at first. If these prices weren't so obscene. So hats off to the community for like valuing them. Like I get it. But I think they might be going a little bit too far with some of those other names that you mentioned being available. And we'll get into Mountcastle more. We'll give him his own time here in a little bit. He comes up on our list in a bit. But let's go to another young guy who really showed out and definitely definitely getting a few jerseys picked up as like, this guy won my league. I know you're picking up one of his teammates' jerseys, but I guarantee you there's some folks out there buying some Nolan Jones jerseys saying, this guy won me my league. I didn't know who he was coming into the year. or even if you did, you didn't have 2020 expectations from him, including 15-15 just in the second half, Justin. 301, 395, 573 slash line for Jones, 48 ribbies with that 15-15, 43 runs. That was all in 286 plate appearances. Of course, playing in Coors helps, but it wasn't the only thing that he needed. He hit 935 on the road. He went 10-8 on the road, 10-12 at home for homers and steals. So he was a home road god. He was a right-left god. Everything worked for Nolan Jones, but I know that there's something that's a little bit problematic with him, and I wonder how you feel about him, because all those stats are great, but there's one that sticks out. It's a 30% K rate and a 12% swinging strike rate. I know you're going to tell me the contact numbers. What's up with Nolan Jones? That was a brilliant second half. Are we buying it at all?
So remember when I said Casas had a 78% zone contact, and that was really
guaranteed Jones is lower.
Yeah, 74.5%. Like it's atrocious. It is. I want to say if he was a qualified hitter, which he was not, it would have been the lowest in Major League Baseball by over a percentage and a half point. Like it's really, really bad. However, they know like what his issues are, right? And they're okay with it. And it's Colorado where you're going to get some BABIP help.
The road BABIP was 434.
Yeah, that's coming down.
374 at home could realistically stay up near there, right, in Coors. You ain't putting up a 434 again on the road. You just can't.
His XBA was like 244 or something like that. Like he outperformed his batting average by 50 points. Like that's he's coming back down to earth in the batting average department, which probably means like I know there are going to be people again who want to like, you know, kind of extrapolate things and be like, oh, look, he had 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases and 400 plate appearances. I don't think you can give him all those home runs and all those stolen bases because he's not getting on base that much next year when the BABIP regression comes. So
what about, okay, you said extrapolate, which I agree. Don't do that.
Yeah.
What about just 2020 over 600 plate appearances then?
I don't think that's a I don't think there's an issue there.
What do we hit? What do we hit in 250? Can the home cover 240?
I'd say high 240. So 250 is in, you know, in that kind of neighborhood.
This is Nolan Jones we're talking about. Got a lot of swing and miss, but power and speed this year. BABIP through the roof. Justin,
and he's gonna play. He's gonna play. Like he's in Colorado. He is going to play every day. He improved his defense. And so like I don't have a problem with people wanting to draft him. I do have a problem where he's going. Like
pick 46.
Yeah. I mean, I was just saying I don't think Triston Casas is a top 100 player. And Nolan Jones is pick 46. Yeah, no. Like that's just a no for me. I would much rather have Royce Lewis at pick 30 than Nolan Jones at pick 46.
I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe that. Like I know he had such a great season. 2020 is hot in 106 games.
The max pick is 61. Obviously, this is only 3 drafts. So like, you know, things are going to change drastically here over the next few months. But I could not take Nolan Jones in the top 60 picks, and that's his max right now.
No, I can't. Like I get Colorado, I get the power and speed, but the profile says that the slash line is a stone cold fluke. And I guarantee people are getting drunk off of the batting average and they're saying, oh, I'll take 30 points off of that. No, you've got to take like 50 off of it.
You're also not going to get runs and RBIs because he plays for Colorado.
Exactly.
That is
you get some at home, but then on the road, it's nothing.
I mean, he's gross.
His road work. I think the people that are going to balk on Nolan Jones are going to be the ones that dig in and see that home road split and be like, whoa, 434 BABIP on the road with just obscene numbers. It's just not going to work like that. He might be a guy who maybe doesn't get as hit by the Coors hangover. I can buy that as a potential notion. I still wouldn't put him down for anywhere near a 935 road OPS for Nolan Jones. It's just not going to happen. And this is another one where it's like intriguing guy that I'm interested in, that I see the price. I say, never mind. I've been priced out of the market completely. But this next guy, maybe not, because with all these other guys rising, maybe our boy our good friend who we did abandon right as draft season kicked into high gear because he got hurt. I don't think we're wrong for abandoning him, but Seiya Suzuki got a very untimely injury right as we were about to go into our drafts and try to get him in every single one. And it kind of spoiled his season a little bit early on. But he rallied and he made the most out of it. And if we had stuck with him, I don't think we'd have been too disappointed because he ended up, thanks to a big second half, finishing with 20 homers, 6 steals, 285 average, 75 runs, 74 ribbies for Seiya Suzuki. That's his full season. 13-5 in the second half with a 313 average. He was excellent once healthy in the second half when the Cubs were rolling until obviously the very end. Wasn't his fault down the stretch though. He killed it in September, October, 7 homers, 370 average for Seiya Suzuki during that run. I think I already know the answer, but just want to underscore it. We're buying back in on our boy, right? He's at pick 111. Or 117 rather. I think that's pretty fair. Are you still in on the Seiya Suzuki train?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe not as hyped as I was coming into last year before the injury, but yeah, the skills were really good in the second half. I mean, he was around league average, or maybe a little bit above league average. Zone contact, was bearing the ball at like a 10-11% rate. Kind of exactly what you want to see, right? 13 home runs and 285 plate appearances, 5 stolen bases. Struck out just 20% of the time, walked almost 10% of the time. Like everything was exactly what you wanted to see from a guy like Seiya Suzuki. He's got to stay on the field though. Like that's going to be important. But I think you can comfortably project him for 550 plate appearances and 30 home runs and maybe like 10 stolen bases.
Yeah, we'll see. He's not been an efficient base stealer. He's 15 for 27 in his career for Suzuki. But, we saw a lot of guys kind of jump up this year. If he gets a little bit more efficient, you can get double digits there sneakily. But just put him down for a little handful, a single-digit handful, and if you get extras, you take it from Suzuki. We don't need to go too much deeper on him. We spoke about him so much in the preseason and even during the season.
I will say something I just noticed. He only had 2 stolen bases after, once August started. So
interesting.
They may have either tried to keep him healthy by not letting him run, or they may have
didn't want to run into outs.
Yeah, don't run into outs. So maybe we pump the brakes a little bit on the 10 stolen bases. And
I'm putting him down in my projection. Just in my head, I haven't done it yet. I'm putting him down for like another 6 or 7.
Yeah,
and then if I get to the 10, 11, 12. That's gravy. Thank you for that extra there, Seiya Suzuki.
Yeah.
So that's our boy. We're sticking with him right back in next year. Pick 117 doesn't seem too unfair. The range is 104 to 127. I'm okay with that for Seiya Suzuki. Next guy, Will Benson, probably getting picked at pick 12 or something. Let me look. Oh, actually a cheap guy. Holy smokes. Despite a big second half, Will Benson is very cheap. Pick 267 in these early drafts. But Will Benson, another guy that Cleveland had no use for. Nolan Jones, by the way, was also from Cleveland. I guess they didn't need these outfielders because they had Miles Straw and Stephen Kwan. Okay, cool. I guess. I don't know. But he had...
smirch Stephen Kwan. Stephen Kwan's been fine.
What do you need 2 Stephen Kwans for, though?
Yeah, sure.
You got Straw and Kwan. It's more the fact that you have 2 of that same copy. They're slightly different. We do not need to break down the differences.
They're not the same.
They're damn near the same at their best. But Stephen Kwan is Luis Ariz. That I stand by firmly. 7 homers, 12 steals in the second half for Benson, 265 average. Interestingly, I put him as a second half breakout. It's more in the volume of his home runs and ribbies because his first half slash line was actually better. 291, 385, 496. Then he drops down to 265, 351, 500. But he played more. And so that volume went up. And the bottom line is he put himself on the radar a bit in the second half. But as I mentioned to you, the price is not particularly high. Is the market sleeping on him? He ended up with 11 and 19 homers and steals in 329 plate appearances, 275 average, playing in Cincinnati. Is this the cheap avenue into the Cincinnati lineup with Will Benson?
I mean, it's definitely a cheap avenue into it. The question is, how much will he play? We know he's going to platoon, though he is on the strong side. The problem with Benson is the just outrageous strikeout rates.
Dude swinging for the fences every single time.
Yeah, and, teams don't mind that as much as they used to, but in this big second half, he had a 36% strikeout rate, completely backed up by an atrocious 76% zone contact.
Yeah.
And it's not like he's swinging outside of the zone, right? He only had a 24% O swing. He swings and misses a lot in the zone, and that's a problem. If you can't make contact in the zone, you're gonna struggle. I think that this is a real big boomer bust type guy because we know Will Benson has power. We know he has speed. The question is, will he get the opportunities if he continues to struggle inside the zone? I like Will Benson as a player. All the reports, I think it was, oh God, Emily. Why am I blanking on her last name right now?
No, I'm just kidding.
No,
that's the
minor
actress.
The minor league writer that has been battling cancer. Why am I blanking on her?
Emily Walden.
Yeah, no, is it Emily? I'm sick right now. I can't think. But she talked about a couple years ago, like he's like the hardest working guy in the minor leagues. Like that he is really, really committed to his craft.
Right. Don't doubt me. Yes, it's Emily Walden. You got me thinking, wait, am I wrong here? No, of course I was right. I'm always right for one. Anyway.
But yeah, she wrote a really good piece on him that he was like one of the hardest working guys in the minor leagues. That while he struggled as a prospect, like he continued to work really, really hard. He didn't get down on himself. I think he can continue to make improvements, but he needs to make massive improvements if he ever wants to be not necessarily even a full-time player, but like a full-time platoon player. I think this is a really risky pick. I don't mind it because this is a pick 270, but I think that is probably an appropriate place for him to be going.
That's fair. There are risks here with Benson, but I think that after all the other guys that we've seen just get sent through the roof with their prices, this one, it actually looks like a damn bargain here with Benson. You talk boomer bust, and he highlighted that in the second half. July, 997 OPS. September, 983. The August in between, 634. And that's 26, 27, and 22 strikeouts from July, August, September there. The Ks are always there. It's that swing for the fences type deal. He's a great roto guy, Will Benson, right? Because you just look at the numbers at the end of the year and you should be good. But if you're dealing with him day to day, week to week, he's probably going to be a pain in your ass. But I like Will Benson, and a pick 276. I'm certainly not getting hurt there paying that price at all. Our next guy, we go out to Oakland, believe it or not. I have something positive to say about an Oakland player. I know that sounds crazy, but again, see, and we're right back to the holy shit prices because Zack Gelof is at pick 135. And obviously, I'm not completely blown away by this because I'm highlighting guys who did the most recent good work here in the second half. So I should be expecting these prices to be higher, but I'm still a little stunned that they're that high. Zack Gelof, he's one of the guys that didn't have any first half numbers because he was in the minors. Comes up in the second half in 69 very nice games. He goes 14-14 in 300 plate appearances. Justin, this is an easy one for the extrapolators. All they have to do is double it to get to 600 plate appearances. And now they've got themselves a 28-28 player. You think Gelof is definitely going to go 28-28 next year, right?
Absolutely.
No, I hope people understand they know our tone. They know we're obviously joking here. He's not going to go anywhere near that, but he hit 267, 337, 504, played well, looked like a really nice piece here for Oakland. Do you believe in Gelof as pick 135?
Pick 135 seems like a bit of a stretch for me.
It was a little high. He's going ahead of TJ Friedel. Ever heard of him?
Yeah, I mean, he strikes out. He's going to strike out a lot. His in-zone contact numbers are not good. They're actually really bad. That being said, this is very similar to Nolan Jones, where he's going to play. He's in Oakland. Like, there's no reason for him not to play every day, even if he's hitting his own body weight, which isn't as high as Nolan Jones. Gelof is there is some pop in there. I don't know how much I believe in the 14 home runs. Like,
agreed.
I don't know that I even project him for 14 home runs in a full season next year, playing in Oakland.
Well, for a full season, I think you might be wrong there because he hit 12 in AAA as well, which is the PCL. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
and
they
Oakland,
play in
obviously.
Like Reno, right? Like
sure. No, Vegas, I thought.
Oh, Vegas. Yeah, it was even worse.
They're going to their AAA. So Also 69 games, by the way.
Nice.
So yeah, I mean, he did hit 26 homers across 608 plate appearances, AAA in the majors. I think I'm getting him to 14 for a full season at the very least. But your point is taken about, like, is the power legit? He did steal 20 in the minors as well. So he went 26-34 over the full season here, Gelof did. AAA numbers need to be tamped down substantially. He's a big-time swing and miss guy, not a huge walker. And unlike Nolan Jones, he does not have Coors backing him. He's got freaking Oakland. Yeah. And so then the runs and ribbies are really coming down. I just can't get there. You talk about another guy who I actually thought would be higher in ADP. Evan Carter is one spot behind him at 135. He's having that huge playoff. He looks like an absolute
that's
monster.
Change, yeah.
I think he's going to go in the top 100. Which
I mean, I actually wouldn't be surprised if Evan Carter isn't a top 50 player come March drafts.
Yeah, I think he'll be top 100 in the next draft that goes, because he's probably put up another bunch of playoff work since then. But Gelof, that's too high for me on Oakland at pick 134.
Yeah, I mean, I could see like a 15-30 season. And so with that, like, I actually don't mind.
That's not terrible then. If you can get that high on it, then even 60-60 on the runs ribbies, because that's probably about what it's going to be.
It might be lower than that.
That would still play then if you're going 15-30,
especially
then,
at second base, which is not like the deepest of positions.
What kind of batting average are you thinking there if you're going 15-30 for Gelof?
245.
Okay, so 245, 15-30, 60-60, we'll call it. Rooker went 69 runs, batted in, 61 scored last year as their best players. So
even if we do like 12-25 at a 245, like, I think that might be enough to put him around 140, which, like, that seems okay-ish. Like, you're putting him up against the likes of Ketel Marte, Tyro Estrada.
Tyro is exactly the comp. And I want to see where he finished last year.
Max Muncy, Trevor Story, like, these are all guys going behind him. I probably will take some of those guys over him, but I don't have a problem with him going around there. So Tyro isn't off my board.
Tyro last year, the year we just had here, put up basically what we just said for Gelof, and he finished as, where the hell is he? Tyro, the 123rd hitter.
Okay, so that would
not be
50 pitchers.
So Tyro, by the way, went 14, 23, 271, 30 points higher than we said, 49 ribbies, 63 runs. So you trade some of that average for ribbies based on the projection that we said, but it's pretty close. And that was
this offer, like, I don't think people think about this enough, but we saw some really good players struggle with this in season, including, I think you talked about this with more on the pitching side than the hitting side, but Gelof offers really interesting roster construction issues, and interesting in a bad way, because when you draft a guy like Gelof, you have to draft someone who's going to make up those runs and RBIs, right? Because he's on Oakland, and that becomes more and more difficult to do because a lot of the good hitters on good teams have already gone by that point. So you're automatically putting yourself in a little bit of a deficit, even though you're getting a lot of stolen bases, which are great. Stolen bases aren't as valuable as they were, previously. And I don't know that he's one of those guys I want to mess with my roster construction, because you automatically start saying, well, then I got to take other guys who are on poor performing offenses off my board. And that's where you get the deals later on.
Especially late, yeah. And you're paying early for Gelof. And that's what I'm saying about, like, Evan Carter being right there. Give me the guy on the much better team. I'm actually just not really sure how Evan Carter's ahead. Even just being 3 drafts, I think I'm obsessed with Evan Carter's plate approach, and obviously seeing him every day in the playoffs right now is helping. But yeah, I like Gelof. He was huge for me. I'm trying not to let my favoritism for him for what he did for my team down the stretch influence me too heavily. And I do think I'm out at this current price point. I think it's too high for me. And unless he comes down a bit, I'm just not sure. Like, Volpe's going pick 144.
Yeah.
10 picks later. I'm just taking Volpe.
Yeah, probably.
Andres Jimenez, pick 153, 20 picks later.
Yeah,
Noelvi Marte doesn't cover second, but he's 155.
I'm definitely taking Marte.
I mean, Trevor Story, 163. I can keep going, but you get my point.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I mean, you can even like dip really down and start looking at guys like Brandon Lau, 283, Brendan Donovan, 274.
I liked Donovan, man. Him getting hurt sucked, but I really liked what he was doing this year.
You know, yeah, I mean, Bryce Terang, you want a guy who can steal bases and play second base? Like,
better team, too. I think that team's better. Obviously, they're better than Oakland.
And
but,
I mean, their power, you know, with Terang being in Milwaukee and Gelof being in Oakland, like the power difference is probably not going to be that much.
Yeah, because Terang can run into a few in Milwaukee, maybe get some benefit, whereas Gelof might get some eaten up there. So the 14-14 was excellent. I do think it could lead people astray.
Yeah.
Even if they're not just, you know, simple extrapolation and doubling it, because that's the thing. They're going to look at it. They're going to go 14-14 and 300. Okay, that'd be 28-28 over 600. Let me shave it down. I'll just say 20-20. I was like, don't just say 20-20 because I don't think he's hitting 20 homers next year. So be careful with Zack Gelof. Love what he did down the stretch. Not sure I trust him at next year's price right now if it stays in the 130s. Now we're over to Mountcastle, who we did hint at earlier. Another first baseman. You know, he's more established. And as great as things were going for Baltimore this year, he really wasn't part of it early on. They were succeeding in spite of him. He did hit 11 homers in the first half, but it came with a 231, 267, 424 line. So it was pretty empty pop. And then in the second half, he only hit 7 homers in about 60 fewer plate appearances, but hit 322, 404, 489. So the slash line came alive. Part of that was just the BABIP going off. It was BABIP regression, 260 in the first half, 386 in the second half, right? It's like the baseball gods knew they owed him a little bit type of deal. But all in all, you look at it and it's a pretty Mountcastleian season. 115 games though, 145, 144 the 2 years before that. Always missing some time. This year was a bigger chunk. He's going to be 27 next year. Mountcastle closed strong. He's still on that great team. Do you like Mountcastle as a cheap avenue into the Baltimore lineup? If you're not paying the premium for those guys. He's picked 241. What do you think of Mountcastle to that end? Like, I just want to get in on Baltimore in case they go off again, which we all expect them to.
Well, I mean, here's my question for you. Is he in the Baltimore lineup next year?
That's a perfectly fair question. I think
they've got to trade somebody, right?
You're talking about trading. Okay, yeah.
I mean, and I think he's the perfect guy to trade because, you know, like he is, you know, he's got less time being cost controlled. And
wouldn't he just be a full timer for whoever he goes to, though? Wouldn't we feel good about that? Or do we worry that Mountcastle would get traded into a platoon situation?
I think he would. Like, I want him to be traded. Like, I want him to,
because then he's free and clear.
Yeah, he's outside of the Camden Yards, which is just atrocious place for him. You know,
used to not be.
Yeah.
He hates that architect.
Yeah,
whoever's idea that was. Mountcastle has a little dartboard of that guy's face.
He needs to go to a place where right-handed hitters don't just suffer. If that happens, then I'll be all over Mountcastle, though I'm sure a lot of other people will be too. So if you're doing an early draft, you might want to just take a dart, considering the pretty decent price. But if he stays in Baltimore, like, I don't know how he gets to 20 home runs, which is a little brutal coming from your first baseman. So
he hit 22 last year, the first year of the change. He got 18 this year in 470.
The problem is will he play full time with all of the guys that they're gonna have? And
that's the thing.
If that's in the cards for him.
This is like American League Cincinnati, right? We've talked about Cincinnati, and if they're going to trade anybody, you can see some avenues for trade, but you don't have to trade under the notion of, like, we still got to get through 162.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we don't give a shit about people's fantasy teams. We love having Heston Kierstead, Colton Cowser, and Ryan Mountcastle on the bench. Like, that's a sick bench. Those would be the 3, 4, 5 hitters for Oakland with Gelof batting 2, you know? So, like,
And who's trading for a 27-year-old DH? Like,
And what
because
are you
he's a
really
bad
getting?
defender.
Yeah.
And so that's the hard part is they need to trade. So, I mean, what they should do is try to trade one of their prospects.
I think
but
Kauser or Kierstead are the
yeah,
ones that are worth trading because I think you can get some. You can really attack the pitching
yeah.
because
But
Mountcastle's bringing back
so
a Kyle Gibson.
if he stays in Oakland, or if he stays in Baltimore, then Mountcastle is a lot less of an intriguing option. He's got really good plate skills, especially in the second half. Like, I know the BABIP was out of control, but he's also like an 88% zone contact guy, which is fantastic for a power hitting first baseman. The problem is that Park really destroys his ability to really hit for power. So you'd be looking at maybe 20 home runs with like a 280 batting average, which is fine. I don't mind that.
It's your CI.
Yeah.
At pick 241, Mountcastle is your CI or your utility. So you can have lesser expectations from that roster spot. But I hear you. It's not as appealing as if he gets traded somewhere and has a chance to pop off again, particularly if it was a righty infused Park that really helped him, as unlike Camden, which is eating up his time. All right, let's get to the catcher corner here. I got four catchers in the middle, and then we'll close out with two rookies who did some damage here. Let's start with one who's still playing, Gabriel Moreno. Quietly, when that trade happened, it was like, oh, Moreno going to Arizona, this Varsho deal. This is really interesting here because, keeping Kirk and Moreno didn't make a ton of sense necessarily, especially with Danny Jansen there. They had to move one of them. Moreno was the guy. Arizona really liked him, and I believe they love his defense too. I want to say that, like, there was a lot of raves about what he can do behind the dish. The bat was fine overall, but it really started to peak through a bit in the second half here with Gabriel Moreno, because I believe he missed some time early on. I forget with what, TBH, but the time miss might have been in the second half because he only played 43 games. But either way, after hitting a 655 OPS in the first half, Moreno went to 894 with a 313 average, 382 OBP, 383 OBP, and 512 slug, 5 homers, 2 steals. Counting numbers aren't off the charts because it's a small sample for Moreno, but he really started to show that he could be the dude down the stretch there. Do you believe in Gabriel Moreno to still have a big breakout coming? He's only 24. This was his first full-ish season. It was only 380 plate appearances. We're still really laying a foundation with Moreno. Are you ready to buy in at a 165 price point?
I don't mind it, but I do worry that people are going to think of him as, hey, he's a former top tier prospect. He's having big postseason. There's going to be skills growth. He's going to hit for power, but he's never been a guy that's going to hit for power. He is, he's Kuiper Ruiz, right? On just a better team.
I can see power developing maybe down the line. I'm talking like age 26, and he's gonna be 24 next year.
I think at best it's like league average power. He's got a 4-degree. Moreno's got a 4-degree launch angle. That's
batting average.
That is not gonna play.
Batting average and runs ribby. You need the stuff that is hard to bank on. Batting average, runs, ribbies out of your catcher. Relative to the playing time that he gets. But that's what you're really getting from him. A smattering of steals, a smattering of home runs. He doesn't bring a ton, so you need that average to be good. He hit 284, though. That's pretty good on the year. He'll be 24 in a good lineup. I think 165 is too high for Gabriel Moreno, though, and I like him.
When you see some of the names going behind him.
Precisely when you see them. Give me a few that you like right off the top.
Sal Perez.
167, right? Just right behind him.
Jonah Heim.
Heim at 183. Now, if we're raising everybody up, that's still in the playoffs. How's my boy? By the way, I'll take it. Let's keep Heim down here. I will take him all day. The aforementioned Ruiz, pick 183.
Logan O'Hoppe,
I'm in on O'Hoppe with you.
And
who's right after him?
Melendez is not going to be catcher eligible,
but who's right after him at pick 227?
Our boy Tyler Stevenson.
I'm taking that discount at equal price. I'm probably going to go back to the Stevenson. You're going to give me 50, 60 picks. I'm taking Stevenson.
Here's the thing. Moreno is a guy who is really a batting average asset, right? He is the perfect C2 that you're going to have to pay a C1 price for.
Yep.
But you only get the benefits of that batting average if he plays a lot.
Yes.
Now, in his defense, if you look at, from I think it's September 14th on, right? So a really small sample, right? He played in 14 of those games. That's a pretty big sample for a catcher, right? He caught he didn't DH at any point. He caught 14 of those games. Are the Diamondbacks going to let him do that over the course of a full season? I don't think so.
If he's healthy, I think I think they see Moreno at his best here when fully healthy as only being replaced once a week. Jose Herrera, whoever their backup catcher, I think he's a once a week type of guy.
Catcher that hits 280, but
yeah. But will he hit 280? Because that's the thing too. When you're betting on a batting average guy, no matter how good they are, they still need some good luck. Even Luis Arise, the best contact guy we've got in the game today, from a pure bat to ball standpoint, and that alone, he still needs the ball to land consistently for him, right? He can still go through a lull because of the way baseball works. So that makes it scary for Moreno. I like the player. I really do. I'll pay for both of his teammates at 290 and 304. That's where Jansen and Kirk are now. Kirk is off the map.
Yeah.
How the hell is he off the map?
Yeah. I mean, give me Luis Campusano at 246.
We're going to talk about him.
Yeah.
That's a transition. Let's just go to him next. We'll move him up one because we got another catcher who I would also take going after him in a minute. But Luis Campusano, pick 246, going way later. Another prospect catcher here of some intrigue who really kind of turned it on in the second half. And if you didn't have him on a team, you might have missed the fact that he hit 6 homers with a 331, 375, 500 line in 152 plate appearances. Now, that did have a huge 339 BABIP and all that. I'm not saying that this is who he is, but I'm just saying he finally put something on paper, Luis Campusano did. He's 24 years old. Is he ready to be unleashed by San Diego? Because right now it's been a little bit of, is he even going to play? And the answer's mostly been no. I think it's finally his time. Do you agree with Luis Campusano?
Yeah. I mean, I think he's going to be one of my most rostered catchers. I think what he did in the second half is really legitimate. We're talking about a guy with a 91% zone contact in 2023. That is elite, especially from a power hitting catcher. I think there is a lot of power in that bat. It's going to be a really great lineup to hit in. He's going to hit towards the bottom of it, but it's also not as stacked as maybe people make it out to be. Machado might miss some time. And so if he's hitting 4th or 5th because he leapfrogs over a guy like Cronenworth and Machado being out for a little while, that could be really valuable for a guy like Campusano. So the fact he's going so much later than a guy like Moreno and showing just as good contact skills, actually technically better contact skills, and has a ton of power in that bat. Yeah, sign me up for Luis Campusano as a catcher 2 that will perform or should perform like a catcher 1.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. It's the opposite of the Moreno situation. You said you had to pay C1 price for what is normally kind of a C2 build. This goes the other way with Campusano. I'm actually really excited about him, and just looking at this catcher list here tells me I won't have any Moreno because there's just too many guys. Let's move to our next one, an older catcher, but one who, I mean, he is pushing his name up a little bit here in the playoffs. Garv Sauce, which is, I don't know where that nickname comes from.
I like it. That's a good one.
That is his nickname, Mitch Garver. Garv Sauce, insane season. 270, 370, 500 with 19 homers. This is the king of home run barrages in small samples. Remember when he hit that 31? I think people might still forget that happened in 93 games. That was absolutely bananas. Health has eluded him throughout his career. That's why he only plays, a handful of games every year, but he always dominates. I shouldn't say he always dominates. He always hits for power. That part is true, but he only had a 98 OPS plus last year, which is not dominant. But he was great this year. I don't know if he's a free agent or not, so I don't know exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so he'll be in a new spot. We don't really know, but he did retain catcher eligibility. He's cooking in the playoffs. Is Mitch Garver somebody you're interested in? He's down at pick 244 right there with our boy Campusano.
Yeah, I mean, I think he is. It'd be interesting to see where he ends up because he's not necessarily a really good catcher.
Yeah, exactly.
So, there are going to be a number of teams that won't even be interested in him just because he's not a guy you want to put behind the backstop very often.
Maybe if you
clog up
need
your DH.
Yeah, maybe if you need first base or DH and a second catcher, he's the ideal fit for that team.
Yeah, or if a place like Arizona where you've got a young catcher who's going to catch a lot, but you need a guy who you spell him on days off, and you can put in DH. When he's
I don't
not.
hate that.
Yeah, so health is the issue with Garver on
Always.
a per plate appearance basis. I think he is a really, really good option, especially in your one catcher leagues. So like in your 10-team, 12-team Yahoo ESPN leagues, I think Garver's should be one of your targets, right? Don't draft an early catcher. Just wait till the end and pick off someone in the last couple rounds. I think Garver's one of those guys that I love to pick off in those kind of formats because, when he gets injured, you throw him on the IL, you pick up someone else. There's replacement value on the waiver wire. But when he is playing and playing, well, he's a top, 7 catcher in baseball on a per play appearance basis. So, those are the type of guys I love in those one catcher leagues.
Yeah, I agree with that. And Mitch Garver, man, like I said, he just packs a punch in the limited sample that he gets at age 33. I doubt he discovers a ton of health, but I like him. I think at draft champions where you're already taking like 3 or 4 catchers anyway, you can bake in the missed time. You're going to miss some time from Garver, but you're going to have him for those couple months.
He's one of those guys that I pair with like a Martin Maldonado. Right. So I get the guy who can pack a punch in limited plate appearances. And then I pair him with a guy, something like 3rd or 4th catcher, a guy that like is just going to play. Like
he's playing.
Just going to play. So that way, when Garver's injured, I know I've got someone to backfill.
You got plate appearances.
Yeah,
Might not be great, but you got play. I'll tell you who I like for that, by the way, who actually quite a bit better than Maldonado, but very, very cheap. Shea Bangaliers.
Yeah.
Going at 308. That's a guy who's going to play, and I could see him being my 3rd or 4th catcher on.
He's going to be on a lot of my teams this year.
Draft champions teams for sure.
I tend to be an early catcher guy, but there's going to be a lot of arguments this year to not take an early catcher at all and just hit these guys going outside of pick 200.
I can still see myself doing like Adley early, and then my next catcher is Tyler Stevenson at pick 227.
Yeah, I mean,
and then I go.
Give me Campusano and Kirk. Give me Campusano and Danny Jansen. Give me Mitch Garver and Langoliers.
Give me O'Hoppy and a Blue Jay. Yeah, I'm with you. Like Patrick the catcher
Bailey,
landscape.
This is a really good time to not worry about taking catcher early.
I agree. I know I'm not going to be taking Adley in every draft. I'm saying every once in a while I might be like, I'll go big, but then my second catcher is going to be way late. Another guy that I have to divorce my love for him for what he did for me this year with this elevated price of Yainer Diaz, another catcher here, the 4th of our little quartet of catchers that's popping off. Not really a catcher in terms of he shouldn't be back there, but he was thrust into duty this year because the way they had some openings, ends up retaining catcher. Could only be a one more year type of thing, right? Like we're always going to be waiting for that last year of Diaz, kind of like Varsho, where it's like, is he going to even retain catcher? He also DH'd for 38 games, played first for 8, but they do have Abreu for a while and they have Alvarez. So he's not on the best team to lose the catcher eligibility, which frankly we love in fantasy. So that's good. Yainer Diaz was incredible. Talk about Garver packing a punch in limited sample. 377 plate appearances for Yainer Diaz, 23 homers, 60 ribs, 51 runs, 282, 308, 538 line. Just an excellent, excellent run out of Diaz. The bulk of it done. Well, actually, no, sorry. I overstated it. Not the bulk of it done in the second half. He was better in the second half. That's why he's on here. But he actually had even 52 game samples in the first and second half. But he jumped from a 768 OPS to 924 in the second half. From 10 to 13 homers, the ribbies jumped, the runs jumped, everything was better. Yainer Diaz is also expensive, though, at pick 149. So this is kind of a Gabriel Moreno thing where I think we just covered the fact that we love so many other catchers. We're probably not taking him. So I'm less concerned of whether or not you're taking Diaz and more concerned with how you feel about him as a player for those who do want to pay the premium.
I love him as a player. And I actually don't have a problem with anybody taking him where he's going. I mean, really, really good in zone contact skills with power at a position that it's hard to find both of those things in the same player and not having to spend a top 50 pick. So getting him outside the top 100 seems fine to me. But like you mentioned, the issue with Diaz isn't anything with Diaz himself. It's with all the other guys going behind him who offer really intriguing skills at a much cheaper price. And if Maldonado is back next year, I think there's going to be playing time issues. You know, you've got Jordan, you know, at the DH. You've got, you know, Maldonado, who is a guy they really like behind the plate as a catcher and
even if it's not him, let me just say, they'll bring in some, like, Diaz will not be the primary catcher. There's just a forward-thinking team like this is not going to put a bad catcher as their number one guy. I still think he has to spot in catcher one day, DH one day, first base one day, and keep rotating. That's my concern with Diaz, and he's a top 150 pick.
Yeah. I mean, I could see a world in which, you know, he wasn't atrocious behind the plate necessarily. Like,
that's good.
He was, I think I want to say, I'm double checking.
He was better than Maldonado this year, by the way, but that's defensive samples, small samples. They're very difficult to judge. So
actually, his catching numbers, his framing was bad, but the rest of his catching numbers were actually really good.
We need to get those we need to get the auto up, because then that helps a guy like Yainer Diaz. They don't have to worry so much about framing.
Or you can spend your coins or whatever on, you know, pumping up his framing. I think, are they coin? I don't know if they're coins in MLB The Show or not. I don't know. So I don't play, but
basically we got to supercharge him.
We got to move that slider up a little bit. So I mean, if the if the Astros decided, hey, we're gonna let Maldonado go. Maldonado is a free agent, and we're gonna let Diaz be the guy. Diaz becomes really interesting, especially around pick 140.
That'd be amazing if they do commit to him. They say, "Hey, we saw some things this year." Remember, like Omar Narvaez was trained by Milwaukee to become a good catcher. They did it this year with William Contreras. Now that's Milwaukee; they're kind of known for having a catching camp. But if Houston has found some things here with Diaz and they've changed his outlook defensively, I don't know. Maybe there's something there. I that would fundamentally change how I feel about Diaz if they did commit to him. But as it stands right now, I can't really project him for much more than the 377 that we saw this year for plate appearances.
Yeah, that's probably right.
Okay, we got two more guys here. I really like this next guy, Matt Wallner in Minnesota. And one of the main reasons I like him is I just think he's going to play next year, because I just don't see a world where they keep Kepler and Gallo, or they bring them back. I think they're both free agents. I could see maybe Kepler coming back, but they're not. With Wallner there, he's the new Gallo. And right down to the fact that he's got insane power. And Wallner was another guy that, you know, I didn't just try to make this about my fantasy team, but I had him as well. I had Casas, Wallner, Gelof, Diaz. I had some guys that were helping me down the stretch there. But he did the bulk of his work in the second half. This was one of those guys that didn't really have a first half to improve from. He was just a second half stud. 13 homers, 237, 354, 500 slash line. Only a 237 average, but I love the well over 100 point OBP split with his batting average. That's huge. So he's taking his walks up there. 37 ribbies, 39 runs in the 229 plate appearances for Matt Wallner. The power's there. Am I getting a 220 average, or can I get something close to this year's 249 that he ended up with as a composite? That's my concern.
Yeah, 230 something. I'm
somewhere in the middle. Okay.
Yeah, is what I'm feeling like. I mean, here's the thing: you ain't got to pay much for him. Pick 328 for Matt Wallner.
Good.
But this feels a lot like a Will Benson that doesn't run.
That's fine. It's 100 picks cheaper too.
Yeah.
So 50, 60 picks cheaper, but still, like, that's a cheap pick.
Wallner's one of those guys that, like, you could, like, look at the end of the year and you go, hey, you know what? Screw it. I got 27 home runs, and, you know, the average went great, but I got some RBIs. And or you could say, like, oh, he was in AAA in May and I got nothing from him. So
we've done this before. Trevor Larnach was his name.
Yeah.
And he didn't quite work. But I think
Larnach's issues were more injuries and being blocked by other guys. Whereas there's a real skills issue with Wallner. I mean, even in the hot second half, he had like a 72% zone contact, which is that is Galloian. kind of zone contact.
Lefty Brent Rooker.
Yeah. And speaking of which, he is not good against lefties, Matt Wallner. He's like atrocious against lefties.
Yeah, he's a platoon guy for sure.
Not, but he's going to hit fourth in that lineup at least to start the year. If, he can continue to mash righties, like that could be enough. And at pick 320 something, like I think it's a worthy gamble. Like that's one of those guys. I think he's one of those guys that I would rather draft in a regular draft than a draft champion. So if you were playing in a draft and home league where you don't have the ability to drop guys off your roster if they end up in AAA, I don't know that I want Wallner.
I got you on that.
Whereas in a league where I'm getting him, pick 320 something, 17th round or something like that, like if he doesn't pan out, I'll pick someone up that could. So I think that is the strategy with a guy like Wallner.
I like that. It is a boomer bust situation. I could get 30 homers. I could get 3, and he's back in AAA, like you said, because of the swing and miss and the lack of consistent contact. But I like him. I kind of see him in the mold as I saw Kerry Carpenter coming into the year, a guy who has a real shot at 30 bombs with some flaws. I don't see them as a 1-to-1 because Carpenter actually threw in a little speed. I think his plate approach is a little bit tighter, but Wallner could mash you 30 in a quality lineup there with Minnesota, and the price is right. You're just not paying that much in case he flops. And I do love your point about the DC, because if he does stone cold flop, I don't want to drag him on my roster of a DC. I want to be able to cut him. Last guy, despite his huge run, not highly priced. The market is not buying in on Davis Schneider, but I had to give the mustachioed man some run here and see if you think that there's any heat here. His full season was all second half base. It was only 35 games, but he hit 276, 404, 603 with 8 homers, 20 ribbies, 23 runs, and 141 plate appearances. It's a tiny sample, but he popped off. Is there anything here to the 25-year-old? Well, he'll be 25 next year. Davis Schneider. Is anything legit?
It's such a weird profile.
Very bizarre.
Yeah, like I don't think there is a ton here. Especially because I just don't know if the playing time is going to be consistent enough for a guy like him. I could see Toronto bringing in someone to play second base. And while he did have a good second half, like he really fell off in September. So from September 1st on, he hit 174 with striking out a third of the time. The in zone contact's really bad. He doesn't swing outside of the zone at all. Like, I mean, we're talking about a guy who in that sample of September on was under a 20% O swing.
That's 60% of his sample. I just want to point out while you're saying those numbers.
Yeah.
September is 60%. So it was that 2-week August run where you could not get him out. He had a 539 BABIP, Davis Schneider did, with 6 homers. So it was such a lightning in a bottle run. It was like Chris Shelton, to throw a throwback name that some people might remember, when he had that huge April rather. So you're not buying this with Schneider then?
No, I don't think so. Like, I mean,
the market isn't either. Like I said, 444 is the pick.
Yeah, I mean, that's fine. Like,
you taking him down there in a DC? Or are you just looking for other guys? Okay.
I want a volume guy. I don't think he's a volume guy. Like, I mean, he's got the skills of what a volume guy could be, but I think he's on too good of a team. Like, I think Toronto is gonna look to add, to that position. They should. I mean, they absolutely should be on the market for a second baseman.
I stick with my boy Michael Busch down here at pick 454.
That's
I would go. I likely over Pagero in Pittsburgh a little bit.
Yeah.
He's pick 439. I don't have to find a ton of names down here, but bottom line is I'm probably not going to do it. I'll go back to the well with my boy Trent Grisham. Speaking of the mustachioed man himself, 462 there.
G1 Bay at 473.
Yeah. Everson Pereira. We're going to talk Yankees. We still have the Yankees guys that you highlighted on there. Colton Cowser, I mentioned him earlier in Baltimore. We don't know if playing time's going to be there. Bottom line is I got guys that I'm going to take. Joey Weimer at pick 481. I just don't see Davis Schneider fitting into my plans, but I want to give him some love because he did have that electric 2-week run, but that carried him because, like you said, you point out how September was poor. Again, that's 60% of his sample. And he was dreadful. So great run by Davis Schneider. He'll be remembered for that run, but I'm not sure we're going to see too much from him here in 2024. Justin, there we go. That's 13 second half standouts there. We like a bunch of them, but some of the prices are just sky high right now. And you got to be careful buying just based off of that second half. That recency bias can charge you a premium. Don't get caught up in it. I think we got to pass on some of these guys and look for the next guys that are going to pop off like that. We'll do some second half stud pitchers. You want to do it on Friday? You want to go double this week? It's my birthday week. My birthday is tomorrow. Let's do double podcast this week.
Sure, I can do Friday.
Let's give him a gift here. We'll do a second one on Friday because then November is going to flip, and then we'll be back to at least 2 a week after that. So
plus, Arizona Fall League coming up, baby. Like, I can't wait.
We're so close to it.
We're gonna have a live podcast, bringing in the midnight hour on Saturday night. So
it allows us to go, full HQ after dark type vibe.
Make sure you take a nap midday if you're there, because you're going to want to stay up, because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what underwear model is going to show up drunk to your podcast. So,
correct. You never know what state Ina will be in. It will be good though.
It could be Pudge Rodriguez this year.
He might bring Pudge with him. That was so amazing, by the way. God, I love every ounce of that commercial.
A lot of it because I was in Disneyland, and I saw it like a couple days after, and I'm just like, oh man, I haven't even had a chance to really soak in what is Eno's underwear commercial. For those who have not seen it, please make sure you go and find that on the Twitter machine or wherever underwear model pictures can be found. And
if for some reason you can't find it, just tweet us.
Hit us up.
We will get it. Get it in your hands immediately.
We can throw it into the description, I'm sure.
Can also do that 100%. Well, Justin, great talking with you. Hope you had a good vacation. And we're about to dial it back up, man. It's been a nice October relaxation, but I'm already ready, man. This gets my juices flowing. I don't need that much time off. I just wanted a bit, but now I'm ready to kick it into high gear.
Yeah, I'll be writing articles and doing projections till like 3 o'clock in the morning every day for the next week. So hopefully I will have at least pretty close to a full set of hitter projections by the time we get to Arizona.
Sounds great, man. Until then, I'll talk to you later.
Take it easy.